Hello and welcome to a great episode of the Great Debaters Contest. I am your host, Austin Nyambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar.
Poaching byproducts, their source markets. Should these source markets be penalized and used to finance efforts towards combating poaching?
Dealing with this very lovely motion will be the gentlemen from Strathmore School. They call themselves Verbo Veritas, the men of truth. And the opponents are from BG Gandu. They told them to smile while they can because time is up. We'll see what these two teams bring to the table.
The motion this week is source markets for poaching byproducts should be penalized and should finance efforts to combat poaching. Proposing the motion, Bishop Gatimu Ngandu Girls. Opposing the motion, Strathmore School. Each contestant has 3 minutes to make their submissions. The audience also gets a chance to put their questions to each team. Each side will have an additional 1 minute to make a final statement. The judge's decision is final. The winning school will get an ICT chill-out zone with the widescreen TV, computers, webcams, and internet connection. The teacher from the winning school gets 100,000 shillings courtesy of Chase Bank. The winning students each get a tablet courtesy of Safaricom, a gift hamper from Unilever, and a gift hamper from mimi.co.ke. And together, they all win the title, The Great Debaters. May the best school win.
Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
I am Charlene Mungai from Bishop Gatimu Ngandu, ready to propose a motion that says source markets for poaching byproducts should be penalized and should finance projects to combat poaching. There are 3 people in God's green world I have no sympathy for: poachers, liars, and thieves. People who have no respect for themselves or for the effects of their low moral fiber. It is a sympathy that poachers are thieves and liars by default. Let us all work to combat poaching. To start the ball rolling, I wish to introduce some of the words in our motion. The source markets are the providers of the buyers. Simply, the markets, the buyers of these products. Poaching is the illegal hunting of game, wildlife, fish, and birds. The poaching byproducts include what we get from these poached animals. We have the horns from the rhinos, we have the tusks from the elephants, we have the shells from the animals in the oceans, and much more, like the skin from the cat family. Well, penalizing the source market will serve as an example to the rest. A recently passed bill by the Kenyan government says that you should heavily penalize all those caught with poached products. For example, in January, a Chinese man was asked to pay 20 million shillings and serve a 7-year jail term. It is really working. From 384 elephants in 2012, 302 in 2013, and currently we are at 97. Aren't we going places, people? It is expensive for the sources. You find that statistics show the highest source markets are the Asian countries. China, Vietnam, name them. The sources of this project, of these byproducts, include Kenya, Somalia, Tanzania, name them. Developing countries. The developed countries are at a better position to handle this situation. It is an expensive project. Will they spare us the little money we have in our budget to continue developing our countries while they produce the sources to combat this poaching? We are already working on a deficit budget, remember? It reduces the numbers, hence some of these animals are actually really close to getting extinct. The number of turtles in the ocean is less than 1,000 in the whole world. Where are we going? It will come to a point we'll be going to the archives to see the bones. My daughter, this was what was called an elephant. It used to look like this. Is it until we get to that point where we will see the effectiveness and the quality of this game in our continent? Is it? Some of these products and some of their uses have no scientific base. In China, let me tell you, they believe that using a tiger's genitalia will improve virility. Is that really fair? Is that really sense? Let us all penalize these people to combat poaching. Thank you.
First opposer, you have 3 minutes.
I have actually had a problem with every single thing that my opponent has said. Okay, sorry, not every single thing, because the first thing that she said was that her name is Charlene, which I think is a nice thing. But after that, that is where things got tricky. You see, she said that a product, for example, in this case, the product of poaching is the ivory that we get from the tusks of elephants. And I totally disagree. Because you see, what we get from the elephant is a product. It cannot be a byproduct. We are working on the basis of byproducts, not products. So if you have a source market for the product, that is different, completely different from a source market for the byproduct. And you know what? We are arguing on the basis of the source market of the byproduct. But what is the byproduct? You see, a byproduct is a substance that comes about as from the processing of, from the refining of the main product. Therefore, in this case, the byproduct is not the ivory that the elephant wears. It is the necklace that we would wear that would be made from the ivory. It is the, I don't know, the Buddha that would be carved out from ivory. It is not the ivory itself. Which leads me to something else. We agree, by the way. We have surrendered and we agree. Poaching is bad. We are totally in agreement with that, but we're not here to argue about whether poaching is bad or not. We're here to argue about measures that we should take to stop poaching. And we disagree with the measures proposed by the motion. You see, the motion proposes that we should fine or jail, perhaps even, the source market. You see, that's the man over there, the man who bought an ivory Buddha, the man who wanted to buy an ivory necklace for his girlfriend. But I don't think so. I absolutely don't think so. And here is why. Well, for example, the poaching industry, if you can call it that, is the world's largest black market industry. It has a turnover of $20 billion. $20 billion, by the way, is equivalent to the national budget of Kenya. Poaching makes as much money as Kenya spends in a year. So if you are to tell me that we should punish that man over there because he bought an ivory necklace, then you are absolutely out of your mind, because it will make no difference. Absolutely. Finding the source market will not really make a difference on the outcome of poaching in its entirety. In addition to that, there's also the logistics of this. If this idea was to be legislated, who would enforce it, I ask you? Our opponents have mentioned that China and Vietnam are the leading market for ivory products, for example. Are you telling me that you would go to China, the law says don't buy ivory, and then they ask you, which law is this? The Constitution of Kenya. No way! You're in China, you can't use Kenyan laws. But what if we take it to the UN, you ask? Well, I'm sorry, that's just not going to work, because China is a veto member of the UN, and so they're going to refuse that proposal. So it's not practical, it's not necessary, it's just wrong.
Second proposer, you have 3 minutes to give a rebuttal.
Panel of adjudicators, schools in attendance, I salute you all. I honor the floor. My name is Grace Washanga from Bishop Gatimu Ngandu, firmly proposing the motion that source market for poaching by products should be penalized and should finance efforts to combat poaching. I'll start by countering something that was said by an opposer here. Well, when you poach an elephant, when you talk about a poached elephant, that elephant is a product of poaching. The tusks you get from this elephant, when you sell them, that market that buys these things are the source market. He also said something about when you actually enforce this legislation, that we are going to go to China and tell them something. Well, I'd like to inform you of organizations such as the International Consortium on Combating Wildlife Crime. We are not going to go there as Kenya or any nation that has put this in legislation to shout at China, we are going to use these formal ways to tell them. Then I'd like to add on to our points. Funds from penalties will serve as a revenue booster. Well, the government does use revenue to fund the efforts to combat poaching. When we start penalizing these people, and among their penalties, we're also going to add on top of that, them having to finance the efforts to combat poaching. The revenue being used by the government in that sector can now be allocated to another sector, and this money is used here. Again, we can also add to the money that the government has been using in efforts to combat poaching. From our study in business, we all know that an effective way of increasing productivity is by increasing the capital. We'll be able to increase the efficiency of our production. So by adding revenue, we are able to increase the efficiency of our efforts to combat poaching. Again, current methods that mainly target poachers have not really brought us the results that we want. They have not yielded as much result as we want. They have not stopped the poaching to the level that we want. I have one thing to say. We need to be liberal. We need to accept change. If you do something repeatedly in the same way and it does not yield as much results as you want, that is a calling for change. And the change we need is to now target the source market. Because if you are selling a commodity, and let's say a very big chain store puts a high competition for you and takes all your market, you will not continue adding stock. So you take away their market, they lack people to sell to. Thank you.
A rebuttal from the opposing team. You have 3 minutes.
It is often rare that beauty and intelligence be woven into one being. And yet here we are graced with the presence of my esteemed opponents from Bishop Gandu. But is this the truth that they're telling us? Or is it lying with confidence? There's a story about a cat that terrorized a group of mice in a building. And these mice were forced to hold a meeting on how to deal with this cat. And after throwing ideas here and there, a young mouse put up his hand and said, "Oh, I know what to do. How about we tie a bell around the cat so that we know each time that it's coming?" And then a wise old mouse said, "How practical is that? How effective is that? You are a mouse. Are you going to go to the cat and get eaten? That's very smart, isn't it?" We come to you as that old mouse, wise old mouse. I, Jeff Gige from Strathmore, to ask you, how effective is this motion? You told us that an elephant is a product from poaching. No. I believe an elephant is born and is a product from gestation. It is as simple as that. Does the source market precede poaching? Or did poaching precede the source market? Why penalize the source market and let the poachers, the distributors, scot-free? Why? What sense does it make? We know, just as my fellow colleague has said, that if we apply a law here, it does not apply in China. And if we come together as one in some kind of treaty to go against poaching, China has legalized ivory trade as long as it's from legal places. So basically, the logic that my opponents have told you is flawed. The argument they have told you is invalid. Let us, who share a common purpose to end poaching, let us take effective, let me reiterate that, effective methods to combat poaching. Thank you.
May we have 2 questions for the proposers?
My name is Ashley Diana from the Mary Hill Girls High School, and I have a question to the proposers. Do you think that it will be unfair for you to deal with the source instead of you dealing with the people who did the poaching on themselves? Why am I saying this? Perhaps I might buy a chain made from perhaps tusks of an elephant, and maybe the elephant was dead and the country decided to sell the tusks legally.
My name is Brenda Wairia, and question to the proposers. So you're suggesting that you want to penalize, even jail, my innocent boyfriend who innocently loves me and innocently bought that ivory necklace for me. Explain.
Alvin Mugo from Moifosis Academy. I have a question to the second opposer who talked about China agreeing on trade of ivory from legal places. So can you be specific about these legal places where they allow?
I'm Samson Karaoke from Kagumo High School, and I had a question to the opposers. You put it across that China has legalized ivory as long as it is from the appropriate and legal places. Then what is the difference between ivory trade in China and ivory trade in Kenya or other countries that makes China distinct, or rather that prevents poaching?
So we may proceed to the 3rd proposer.
I am Maureen Modhoni from Bishop Gatimu Ngandu Girls to propose the motion that states that source markets for animal byproducts should be penalized and should finance efforts to combat poaching. Well, courage is what it takes to stand and talk. Courage is also what it takes to sit and listen. I want to thank the audience for the question posed to us. The first person asked, do you think it will be unfair to deal with the source market rather than those who poach? I'll read the motion again. Source market for animal byproducts should be penalized and should finance efforts to combat poaching. In that motion, I don't believe there is a part I've read that we should not punish the poachers. I believe my question is answered. The second person asked about the boyfriend who innocently buys her a necklace, who innocently brings it to her, and all that. And I'm like asking myself, yes, it is illegal. So long as the government has put legislation which renders the activity illegal, it is illegal. And again, I don't see how, if he would buy you a gold necklace, it would hurt the elephant. In addition to that, I'd like to talk about international recognition and prestige. The Great Wild Beast Migration is one of the 7 national wonders of the world. Nowhere in the world has there been such a migration of animals. Over 2 million wild beasts migrate from the Serengeti National Park in Tanzania to the Kenyan Masai Mara National Park. This is fantastic. I look at the big 5 animals in Kenya. These are animals that have been used to brand liquor, both locally and internationally. For example, in the USA. Now, if we did not concentrate on penalizing the source market, where would Kenya be at an international level? My second point is on trade embargoes. They say education is a progressive discovery of our own ignorance. James Mwangi, CEO Equity Bank, the driver of Kenyan's Vision 2030, and furthermore, a father to many scholars in Kenya, said change and realize change is the only way to re-innovation. Now, if the international organizations such as the UN came in handy and put measures such as organizations, for example, we have the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime. Such an office has established a conclusion. They came to a conclusion that Kenya and Tanzania ports, and most especially the port of Mombasa, has been associated with the smuggling of poached animals to countries such as China. These countries, I'm talking about 114 dead elephants. Now, If we do not penalize the source market, how would Kenya be able to protect its wild animals? If China was banned from trading with other countries, wouldn't there be more of a disservice to themselves than a service? I'll conclude by saying I hold the hand of Mugo Kibati, James Mwangi, as we work towards Vision 2030, not only locally but also internationally, and say that, is it your 10 years plan that the end justifies the means or the means justifies the end? Thank you.
The opposing team, you have 3 minutes to respond to the audience.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is David Bindio, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to not only dissent with the motion, but to also illegitimize it. But first, without putting the cart before the bull, I will answer the questions as posed. The legal way in which we can trade ivory. Elephants are like humans. Why not leave them to live there 70 years? And once they have died out of natural measures, instead of letting the ivory rot, why can't we trade it? Why can't we take advantage of that which has happened to make something good out of it? Secondly, the difference between China and the rest of the world is that in China, trading of ivory internally is legal. It's not a black market like the rest of the world. All that my fellow opponent has said today is nothing but a fantasy. Shall we get back to the reality? 40%. Might we know? Perhaps some of you do know what that figure stands for. Well, I assure you it's not what I got in my last math paper. But it is the number of unemployed citizens here in Kenya. Kenya alone. 202 million, if shillings could buy many of us Range Rovers. I personally love the Evoque. Mr. Wayaki tells me here he likes the sport, but anyway, that's off the point. 202 million are the number of unemployed people in the world. Well, I'm sure you're wondering how unemployment and the poaching byproduct market are related, and they're related in this way. Imagine you own your ivory shop, and I have a beloved one, my girlfriend, my sister, my mother, my wife, and I want to make her happy, so I walk into your shop and I buy a necklace and take it to her. So everyone's happy, we live our happy lives. But are you telling me that I'm the one to be punished because of something someone else did? For example, if I walk in here as a cobbler and see people's torn shoes and decide to fix them, are you going to punish me for making something good out of the evil that's present? I think logic states otherwise. You should not punish the basket weavers because you have reeds in your pond. A quote by a congressman: a financially stable economy is dead, with bad laws holding the smoking gun. I believe that punishing the source market is indeed wrong, and it is a bad law. As Confucius tells us, the superior man stands for what is right. Therefore, I urge us all to be the superior people. Thank you.
The proposing team, you have a minute to give your final statement.
Listen to the voice of truth. Listen to the voice of justice. Are you just trying to tell us that you do not see the dwindling number of elephants in the world? The dwindling number of turtles in the world? The dwindling number of blue whales in the world? You are trying to make us legalize poaching. Currently, a kilogram of powdered rhino horn is going at $60,000 US, more expensive than a few carats of gold. If a man can purchase that, couldn't he fence a whole national park? Tell me, couldn't that source market fence a hole and build a sanctuary to protect our blue whales? People, I am I am a geographer by nature. I love wild animals, and I believe all of you do. Let us save these wild animals. A producer will not go ahead producing something if there is no market. So we need to kill this market, and finally, there will be no poaching occurring. Please, listen to the voice of truth. Let us save our environment. This is part of us. Let us conserve environment. Thank you.
Opposers, you have a minute.
Satao is dead. I said Satao is dead. Forget everything that we just said. Forget it. Satao is dead. I don't know whether Kenya realizes that the world's biggest elephant was killed in Kenya last month. Satao is dead. Satao's tusks were so large that they would sweep the ground. And Satao is dead. Yet our opponents have the audacity to say that we support poaching, we want to legalize poaching. Which planet do we live on? We do not want poaching to continue. We agree poaching is bad. But we are saying, no, don't find those guys. You see those guys over there? The ones who bought an ivory decoration for their mantelpiece. They've always wanted it, but finally they got it. We say, don't find them. No. That's the wrong person to be going after. Go after the guy who killed Satao. The man who put 3 poisoned arrows in his side. The man who decided that Kenya, you want to conserve? I don't care. Kill that guy. Kill that man who killed Satao. We cannot. We absolutely cannot say that the source market, those good Chinese people, are responsible for Satao dying. That's just wrong.
Strathmore School, Wayaki. That was a handsome display of a major talent. You have a shocking talent. You know, the way you use your voice to bring about various effects is just beautiful. Very strong debater. And possibly this is what I can say. If great debaters will produce leaders like you, then long live great debaters. Leaders who are intelligent, leaders who are very, very visionary. David, the same applies to you. Your level of intelligence and composure is quite beautiful. Love listening to you. I mean, you're not shouting, you're not trying to appear as if you're aggressive. You just speak calmly and you bring the message home. The same applies to Jeff. You're a good speaker and good emphasis. Let me just maybe make a comment. When you're speaking also, you're racing against time. I know there's a lot of pauses in the course of your presentation. For effect, I don't know. Because you forgot something, I don't know. But you can improve on that so that you ensure that as you deliver, you say a lot within the stipulated time.
Bishop Gatimu Ngandu Girls, brilliant performance. I think when Shalene came on to make the final submission, I was almost in tears. And then Valiant comes on and actually cried, you know. Satao is dead. I mean, that is emotional. And for those of you who've been following, thank you for the napkin. For those of you who've been following, you know, the news, that is extremely painful, you know. And you were able to create that effect. So everybody remembers, you know, what you have said.
You know, this is one motion that is very, very much into our hearts, even as a country. And I think to both teams, it was so interesting how you took the angles. None of you came out to say that we should legalize poaching. None of you. And that was one of the risky places if we try to take that side. And I think I applaud even Strathmore for the angle they took as well, trying to say there can be better ways to deal with them. And I also applaud Bishop Gatimu for your stand and what you decided to stand on. You're not moved at all. And that's what we call a debate. For me, this is what we call a debate. And thanks so much for crowning this today.
The ladies on stage got 71.3, and I think that's a very commendable effort. The gentleman from Strathmore got 78%. Highest score we've seen today, so it's congratulations to both teams, and they've given us a really good debate.
I believe what we have just witnessed is a hallmark in the debating world. And therefore, from all of us at the Great Debaters Contest, thank you for watching. I am your host, Austin Nyambok.
I am Mariam Bishar. We'll see you next time.
The winning school will get an ICT chill-out zone with the widescreen TV, computers, webcams, and internet connection. The teacher from the winning school gets 100,000 shillings courtesy of Chase Bank. The winning students each get a tablet courtesy of Safaricom, a gift hamper from Unilever, and a gift hamper from mimi.co.ke. And together, they all win the title, The Great Debaters. May the best school win.